Hello everybody, and welcome to Judge Mathas. And today on trial stands the last Federation, the latest attempt by the company Arcen Games. Ah, Arcen Games, you are an interesting company to play their games of, that is for sure. See, Arcen Games is a very hit or miss company in my opinion. The good thing about them is they're not really afraid to dive into genres and shake them up. They have a very interesting concepts and very interesting goals going into each one of their games, and for better or for worse, they really try to make it unique. One of their most successful one, if not their most successful one to date, is AI Wars. Kind of a tower defense game that involves fighting up against an AI that you kind of had to play this game of balance and patience with. It's very, very, very interesting, and I highly suggest checking it out. But other games they've done haven't fared so well. A while ago, I did a video on A Valley Without Wind 2, and like a lot of people, I wasn't really happy with it. I didn't think it was very good, and I couldn't quite understand who the target audience was. A Valley Without Wind in 1 and 2 were both kind of targeting this Metroidvania-style audience, but they had such a weird strategic twist and random generation twist on it, coupled with a bizarre art style that they're kind of known for, that just didn't really sit well with me and the people who ended up playing it. But they went on and they made other games, plenty of other games, and like those two, they were either hit or miss. But I definitely commend Arcen Games for being experimental. It's good to have developers like this. They're willing to do something different. And, well, when I see a new game come out of theirs and they're like, hey, do you want to check it out? I can't help but say yes, because I'm very interested to see what they did. So, I went into the last Federation not knowing what it was all that much, and I played. So if you were to ask me, hey Mathas, what is the last Federation? What is it about? That'd be a very difficult question to answer. It definitely sits in the turn-based grand strategy genre, I think is the best way to put it. It is a grand strategy that does kind of work on turns, so to speak, but those are complicated, and we'll get into that as we get into the gameplay. But the idea behind it is it's all running during a very deep simulation. You are attempting to create a federation of planets within your solar system. Each planet in the solar system houses a different race that is randomly assigned when you start a new game, and each one of the races is so unique and so different in how they act, what they like, what they don't like, that trying to create a federation of planets can be very difficult. How do you go about creating this last federation? Well, that's actually very up to you. You see, the game is going to run with or without you. In fact, there's an observer mode in the game if you're into just watching kind of the simulation play out. You are not so much deciding what's going to happen as much as trying to influence the races to cooperate with one another by doing things, whether it be political sabotage or straight up combat, all of which are options. And it's all very, very deep and interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start playing. Because the game is so complex, I'm not going to be able to go through everything, but hopefully I'm going to be able to give you a very clear idea as to how the game works. If you are going to pick up the game, I highly suggest you start with Quick Start. It's going to go through the tutorial, and unlike a lot of other grand strategies, it walks you through every important feature of the game step by step. The cool thing is that it's actually a full-fledged campaign. It's a full-fledged game while you're playing through the tutorial, and it'll take you probably about 3 hours. But it is not a boring 3 hours. It is a very fun 3 hours. So you can see at the bottom left is a picture of the Hydra. That is who you are. The story is you're the last member of the surviving race, the Hydrals. Something happened on your planet where your planet was destroyed, and you were the only member of the race to escape on an escape pod. You then crash land on a planet, randomly chosen if you so choose, of the other races, and you are waiting for them to become spacefaring. Apparently none of them are spacefaring. Once they create the first spacefaring ship, you hijack it and you escape the planet, and you are now trying to create a federation of planets because you want peace within the solar system. So we have two options, Quick Start, which is just a quick start. I would highly suggest you play that for your first time, and Advanced Start. We're going to go in Advanced Start because I've played. You have your strategic difficulty, easy, normal, and hard. Your combat difficulty, which is you are so OP, easy, normal, hard, harder, and misery. I'm going to stay on normal. I love you are so OP. AFA and assassins attack you less frequently. Your flagships have 8 times the normal damage and health. And NPC flagships have half the normal health. Your direct fire weapons and abilities do 3 times as much damage as normal. Squadrons of enemies and allies deploy at half speed. So it is just ridiculous. You're just super powerful. You have your starting year as well. This is important because this is actually very important. Because if you end up starting really late, the AI is going to end up having technologies that they wouldn't otherwise have. As throughout the game, AI all have their own goals and ambitions. And as you are playing through time, they're researching technologies, whether it be weapons or things to make their society better. And, you know, it can make them much more difficult powerhouses. Hell, the warlike race could have 3 times the armada of ships as they would in starting at year 0. So picking the year you started greatly influences the way you're going to end up playing the game. I highly suggest starting at year 0, your first few gameplays, so you understand how the race is developed and what their kind of niches are. And then you have a crash landing, so you can pick one of the races to crash land on. I always like random, just to let it pick. Each one of the races, as I said, is very unique in what they like, what they don't like. Their societies run incredibly differently. For instance, there are 2 societies that are without crime, but they're without crime for completely different reasons. One is an utter utopia, so they have no crime because of that, and the other is a hive mind race, so it's impossible to have crime. Both of which, when you interact, are completely different. I love that. So I'm gonna pick random. You also have Iron Man mode if you wanted, you know, the save to be hard-coded and you can't go back and save scum. Observer mode if you just want to watch things. It's all that wonderful stuff. It allows you to observe a solar system develop without your interaction, so you can see how it happens. Will the solar system destroy itself, etc., etc. Permadeath if you want to play this like a roguelike, and skip tutorials and enable all games from the start, which we're going to do. So we'll go ahead and start up. And the first thing that's going to happen is going to be what I'm talking about as far as the turn-based quote-unquote style of the game. The combat in this game is, we're going to skip all of this, the combat in this game is incredibly interesting. So we actually crash landed on the hive mind race. Let's see, do not have a substantive space fleet yet. Blah, blah, blah. We're stealing one of their flagships that they first developed. It also determines the type of ship you're going to get. Depending on the planet you crash on will totally determine on the ship you're going to get. So, here's the combat screen. When you engage in combat, this is what you're going to be greeted with every single time. And it's turn-based in that there are turns. But you and the enemies all act on the same turn. During the paused moment where you haven't decided what you're going to do yet, you decide where you're going to move, what weapons you're going to use, and where you're going to allocate your power. So this right here is where you're going to move, obviously. You can kind of pick where you're going to end up moving and then all this stuff. The bottom here is your special abilities. Basically, special abilities are super powerful things that you can only do a certain number of times per combat. When you use them, you can't move and you can't shoot your regular guns, so it's kind of a penalty in doing it, but it's usually useful if you can do it correctly. And then we have up at the top left your health and your shields, and then more importantly where your power is allocated. So we have our weapons, our shields, and our engines. Obviously the more we have in our weapons, the further we can shoot and the more damage we're going to do. The more we have in shields, the greater and stronger our shields are and the faster they regenerate. And the more we have in engines, the faster and more maneuverable our ship can be. I'm going to go ahead and allocate some over here to the weapons, taking a little bit away from shields and not worrying about it. The first combat, we also have 2 options. We can destroy the ships that are stopping us from escaping, or we can dock with them. So, the reason there's 2 choices here, and I apologize for doing so much talking, but I kind of want to explain a little bit of the depth that goes into some of these combats. So, when you first escape, the race that you end up escaping from automatically hates you by -100. You are stealing one of their ships and escaping their planet. They detest you for doing it, especially since it's one of their first spacefaring ships. You can then destroy their ships and escape, which would make them hate you even more, or you can dock up with them and trade them some technology in kind of exchange for their ship. They're still going to hate you because you took the ship, but because you're trading them technology in turn, they're going to hate you a little bit less. So you'll start up with a bit more of a peaceful situation. The thing is, you're trading them technology you know. Now, you don't lose the knowledge of the technology, but you're granting this race technology which may give them a leg up in the future against the other races, and could turn them into a powerhouse later on down the line without you realizing it. Again, this game is incredibly deep. So we're going to go ahead and just destroy them. So we're going to start moving towards the ships. This will be the radius of our weapon that we're using, and then we're going to pick one of 3 weapons. We have ourselves a spread shot, which is kind of your typical spread shot, like a shotgun blast. We have an energy blaster, which does 4 times damage to shields, and a gravity lance, which does a bunch of damage to the hull. It's kind of easy to pick what you want to use, especially if you're going up against a ship that has shields up or a hull. But if you're not sure, you can hover over an enemy and see through the bottom left some information on them. So you have their hull health, how much damage they can do. But you can actually see, it says your DPS against this. We can do most damage with the spread shot, gravity lance following, and the energy blast last, and then a stunning shot if we had one. So we're just going to keep with the spread shot because it does the most damage against them, and then click again to acknowledge our move. Now everything is going to start moving at kind of fast pace, and bam, that's the first turn. So you see what I mean? It's kind of turn-based. You pick your actions and then you say okay, but then you do your actions and they do their actions all at the same time. So we're going to go ahead and start moving in. And it may seem really easy early on, mind you, but as the combats get much, much more difficult, there's a lot more depth and strategy to the way the combat ends up playing out. You need to dodge bullets. You might need to go to the outskirts and fight from the outskirts. Hell, maybe you should allow, if you have allies in the combat, for the allies to take most of the damage. So I think we took out that ship. So we're going to switch over to the burst laser, or the energy burst blaster. And we're going to start pounding away at his shields. Now, they're actually doing a little bit more damage. So we're going to start pecking away and moving away from him a little bit. And he is doing quite a bit of damage. So we're just going to keep moving and staying out of range over here. So he's out. And we're going to go to the gravity lance and start pounding away at his shields. Do we have... Well, let's take a look at our special abilities here. Disable gravity systems. All abilities causes all gravity lance style weapons on all sides to stop functioning. So if they have a gravity lance, we can stop them. The stunner stuns all small and medium ships with a range. Broadcast a virus to take over all small and medium ships that are within 1,000. Oh, so we could take over with a virus. That's kind of cool. Operation Zero deploys a squadron of 60 Zero interceptors, which will immediately work on ramming themselves into targets, destroying themselves in the process, which is awesome. And then energy shield repairs. When we have at least 10% hull damage, damages your hull by 5%, but brings your shields back up to full power. So if we are damaged, we can actually repair our shields completely. But let's go ahead and curve around this way and see if we can take this guy out. And we're done. So we killed all the ships and we leave. So we escape. Let's go ahead and hit any combat. At the end of every combat, it gives you a nice combat screen telling you what happened. So let's see. The Thoraxians, which is the race we escaped from and we stole a ship from, lost a squadron, a flotilla, and an armada. It took 8 turns. You took a total of, it's total damage. Let's see. Total number of hostile ships that participated, which was 33. So a lot of smaller ships there. They kind of go down in 1 or 2 shots. We destroyed a total of 11 ships. We gained credit, which is kind of our money that we can spend on all kinds of different things, like persuading people to work for us and stuff. And then we lost an extra 2 influence on top of the 100 we already lost from them. So there you go. That's the end of the combat. So we'll talk a little bit more as we go. But here's where the bulk of your gameplay is going to happen. The solar system. There's a lot of information to take in when you're looking at this, I understand. But again, it's one of probably the most accessible grand strategy games I've played in a long time. So here is the solar system. Now, each planet has a different race on it, and you can kind of hover over and see what the races are. So the Peletian race, they're not quite spacefaring yet. In fact, I don't know if any of them are spacefaring yet. None of them are spacefaring quite yet. The Peletian, should I say, the Thoraxians are the first spacefaring flight. That makes sense because we are what we're going to do. So, this is where a lot of what you have to make decisions on comes into play. I'd even say that this is where you're going to be spending the bulk of your time playing the game. The combat is kind of a means to an end more. It's not that the combat's bad. It's actually pretty good. I actually enjoy it quite a bit. But the game is more about influencing the races and choosing who you want to befriend or who you're going to make enemies of. Trust me, unless you are incredibly talented at this game, you are going to make enemies, especially in your first 2 or 3 game playthroughs. But the first thing you do, and the first way you can influence these races, is starting to bring some of these races to space. It's kind of the only way you can do it. Otherwise, there are going to not be players in the galaxy at all. So, you have a few ways of bringing these races to space. You can fly to their planet and directly fly to them and hand them spacefaring technology, which is going to be both good and bad. See, when you elevate a race into space, it actually pisses off all the other races. They're really mad that you actually chose the other people and not them to bring to space, which is kind of weird now that I think about it, because how do they know? It doesn't matter. But every once in a while, you'll get the opportunity to stealthily bring a particular race their spacefaring technology. For instance, at the top, we have 2 quests. One of which is Bring Burlust Military has a secret proposal to gain spacefaring tech. Basically, doing this quest will give the Burlusts the ability to be spacefaring. It will also do it stealthily. We will not alert the other races, and they'll just assume that the Burlusts are able to fly to space by happenstance. So that's always good. The problem with that is, and then things you're going to have to take into account when you play this game, what are the races like? So we elevate, for instance, we think about it, we elevate the Burlust first to space technology. They're the first race we bring. They are a military race, as you can see by Burlust Military. Before we even bring the other guys up, these guys are starting to research armadas, they're starting to build a huge star fleet, and they begin their plans of war without you being able to do much about it. And since they were the first ones to space amongst everybody else with the exception of the Thoraxians, they're going to have kind of an advantage over the rest. So now what do? Do you hurry up and elevate everybody else, even though they don't have quests to bring space technology to them secretly, which would piss off everybody? Or do you maybe work with the Burlusts primarily early on, and then maybe muscle your way into the Federation themselves and fight a warlike war against the solar system to bring a militaristic Federation to the solar system? We also have bring terraforming specs here. So basically, there's also other things that happen quite a lot. In fact, if you look under this particular planet right here, it's the easiest way because they have the most, you're going to see a lot of numbers, all of which are very important. Now again, this game actually throws a ton of information at you. For instance, we can take a look at all these numbers, which we'll go over in a second. We have tech progress, which shows you what races have what technology, race relations, who hates who likes what. We've got racial power grid, who's the most powerful, who's spacefaring. You have detailed information on armadas, on health graphs. You can take a look at all these wonderful graphs that show certain things. There's armada graphs as well, who's got a lot of power, who doesn't. There's a lot of information here, which makes this an amazing sim. I can't stress enough, if you're going to end up playing this game, to play it through the quick start and go through the tutorial. It is one of the best tutorials for a grand strategy I've ever played. They don't throw all this stuff at you all at once. They gradually introduce it over the course of a 2 to 3 hour campaign. And then, once they're done with the tutorials, they let you play out the campaign the way you want. So yes, there's going to be a lot of information, is what I'm going at. But as I was saying, this particular quest is talking about terraforming. And there's going to be a lot of quests that pop up that are not just bring spacefaring tech to other people and secretly. For instance, the Mikaphobe are not very compatible with the planet they're on. As you start a new game, the races are randomly assigned to other planets, and some planets are much more compatible with other races than others. So the Mikaphobe are not very compatible with their planet. They are 0.39 out of a total of +1 compatible with their planet. There are, over here, there's planet compatibility, there's other things like their social structure, their economic up and down turns. All kinds of things happen on each one of these planets, and sometimes quests will pop up to say, hey, this planet's economy is so shit that they're producing slowly, their ships are coming out slowly, they're not able to do any research, and they're becoming less and less of a power. Do you want to go to this planet, spend time and money helping them, and being able to bring their economy to a more of an upturn? Doing that completely changes the outcome of the sim, what you're going to do. What you'll quickly realize is that though you're one ship that flies between the planets, as you can see me flying around, helping out or helping other races, really all you are and all that your race is, your particular ship is kind of an avatar for your godlike powers. It's interesting, the comparison I kept drawing as I played this game was Democracy 3. Democracy 3 was a game about playing God on a political simulator and watching the numbers have effects. The same thing is true here, except there's no sliders, and you can't mess with more than one thing at a time. You're only able to affect one thing here and there at a particular planet for a certain amount of time. But what you're doing is messing with the numbers to have the AI hopefully edge in your favor, have those numbers edge in your favor to head towards that Federation thing. So really, you're less of the last of a race, and I think the last of a race is more of a way just to say, hey, you're actually physically in the solar system. It's just the avatar for you as the player to go and mess with things on other planets. Again, the solar system is going to continue with or without you, so it's just you being able to mess with the numbers and watch the solar system and the simulator play out, and seeing what your actions do to mess with things. And that's what's so wonderful about the game. It's such a wide open sandbox that it's really kind of an empowering feeling to watch your long enacted plans come into fruition, to see those things that you tweaked and turned actually do what you were hoping they would do. It's also disastrous when when a particular race gets super powerful behind your back and launches an armada to multiple planets and starts conquering the solar system on their own. So let's go ahead and do one of these things. So for fun, let's go ahead and give the Burlust military their spacefaring tech. So if we do this, they're going to gain 50 influence with us. Right now they're at -10. They're just neutral. Because we're going to give them the spacefaring tech, they'll get +50. If we kill all the flagships, we're going to get some of our hydral tech. That's the other thing of the story. A lot of our technology, since we were the most technologically advanced species in the solar system, when we died and our planet blew up, a lot of our technology was scattered throughout the solar system, so we'll get some of our hydral tech back. And the Burlust will become spacefaring. If we ignore, lose, or any other contract taken like this one, we'll get -5 influence, and so they'll be -15. So that means, same thing with here, since we are ignoring them for now, you know, making a choice can have heavy impact on influences. So taking this means the Miqualfual are going to not like us that much because we chose to help the Burlesque instead of them. So let's go ahead and do that. And we need to kill a flagship. And there's 2 around. So if we kill both flagships, we'll be in good shape. So I only see 1 here. Oh, there's another one over there. So let's go over here and start aiming towards them. We need to switch our weapons to the spread shot, though, so we can start doing that. Spread shot going through. We'll actually do a loop around. We're going to take some good damage, but it's not that bad. I love the spread shot. Such a cool ability. And what we can do, when you blow up a ship, sometimes pods pop out. We can actually go over there and suck them in. We might have already taken them, actually. But when you do that, you actually kidnap some of the race, and you can later go to the black market and sell them as slaves, which is kind of awesome, which gives you credit and money, and makes the race hate you a little bit, but what are you going to do? I mean, it's not a good thing. Looks like we're going to be able to get both of them. Boom, we get them, and we warp off. So we end combat.
The Burlesque warlords are now spacefaring. And extreme caution is advised. Yep. They seem likely to take their constant internal wars to the solar stage.
Yeah, so basically, like I said, the Burlesque are a very militaristic race. That was a computer saying that. So the Thoraxians tried to stop us from secretly giving them their technology. Took 11 turns. We destroyed pretty much everything. We gained 815 credit. We lost influence of the Thoraxians, but they hate us anyway. The Evox, since we refused their call for help, don't like us. But we gained 50 influence, none of the other races found out, and now the Burlesque are spacefaring. We also rescued 9 Thoraxian pilots, so we have them to do with what we please. So we can go to the main screen, and now these guys are spacefaring. So what does that mean for us? Well, now they can start doing things in space. They can start researching space technology, they can start building ships, they can start messing with things on the whole. So what can we do outside of taking missions? What else are you allowed to do in this game to create Federation? Actually, you can check right down here. This is the different ways of creating the Federation with primary races related to each one. We can create strong Federation through warlike races and so on and so forth. But what you can do is go to planets, and you have multiple options on planets. You can get the planet details, which is very long. Again, this is all introduced over time through the tutorial. You can have friendly acts, so each one has, let's see. So each one has a bunch of things you can do to help them. You can aid their local economy. which then you can decide how long you want to aid their local economy, which will have different effects on them as a race. Aid the local law enforcement, help destroy a pirate base if those were available, but there are no pirates nearby right now. We can gift them technology, which will gain influence automatically with them, but then they no longer have to research that technology, they just have it, which can be scary. And you can do all kinds of stuff. You have so many choices to do with them, and then later on down the line you have even more choices to help tip things in your favor or against one. For instance, as an option to basically plant evidence that another race is conspiring against them, to have them hate that other race. There's an 80% chance of it working on 20% of chance of you finding out and having both races hate you. But sometimes it's really worth it, especially if one race is getting really strong and you want to try to get the solar system against them, which is something I ended up doing in my last campaign. There was a particular race that was getting really incredibly strong, and the best thing I could do was start trying to get the rest of the solar system against them. So I started trying to influence how much they were hated by the rest of the solar system until they all started kind of fighting them and battering them off. They were so powerful, they actually had 3 other planets they had conquered, so I had to decide, all right, look, we need to destroy them. Let's figure out a way to do it. So you also have hostile actions on a planet you can go to. It's interesting on the Burlesque, they're a very unique race because they actually don't like credit. They actually don't take credit. So here are the things we can do. We can hire an informant and do all kinds of other stuff. The informant will give us a bunch of criminal actions we could do, like support bioterrorism and sabotage their economy and all wonderful things. So if you want to just hurt a race's progress, that's a way of doing it. And then finally we have Burlesque Warlords. So as I was saying, the Burlesque themselves are a very unique race in that they don't actually accept credit to influence them. They're actually ruled by warlords, and each warlord likes you by the amount of influence you have with them, or respect, or whatever it's called. And in order to earn respect, you actually have to duel one of the other warlords to the death. And if you kill that warlord, another warlord will take his place who likes you a bunch, and the other warlords will respect you more through a number bonus. And then you can spend that respect with each individual warlord to have the Council of Warlords make decisions like going to war with another planet or doing this, that, and the other. They're very cool like that. These are the warlords. You can make deals with them. You can challenge to a duel, blackmail them, all the stuff we can't actually do yet because we don't have any evidence or put in a word with your boss. We don't have leverage with them. It's called leverage. That's what it is. We have no leverage. All kinds of cool things. While say something like let's go to these guys over here, the Borines, who are a much more peaceful race. We can't actually talk to the Borines with them right now, but we can talk to these guys. So we can go to the Thoraxian Queen, who they are very difficult to please because they're a hive mind. But with her, we can do all kinds of other things. Which would cost us credit and influence, which makes sense. Well, it wouldn't cost us influence. We need influence with them. We're at minus 100 and something in credit, but we can have them break off trade routes and broker trade routes and all these other things. Again, going to planets and having them do different things and then watching the simulation kind of play out in front of you. I hope you're kind of understanding how this game works. It's very interesting. So we took, they gladly accepted the technology, so we basically gave them the Burlesque. These are going to be this right here, this bar that's going to go down here, and notifications are just things that have happened in the solar system with or without your help. So we did smuggle things. We ignored one of their quests. These are the 2 quests over here. You can actually unpause it and let the simulation just run if you want. But if you want to do decisions, I suggest pausing it. The last thing you have is basically black market and your destroyed planet. So the destroyed planet this used to be your home world. It was destroyed by whatever end planet you ended up crashing on. So we crashed on here, and as far as I know, the Thoraxians are the ones who destroyed our home planet, and that's why they own the planet. And then the planet itself has some special things. It's an outpost now for them, which we can't do anything really with. They have friendly acts, none of which are there. It's just kind of an outpost. They're just kind of owned. And then the black market, which would allow us to do a bunch of things. So in the black market, you can buy some of your technology back that has been kind of picked up by mercs. You can hire scientists, security, and construction workers to put on planets to hurry up research. So say if a planet is building a moon colony, but it's taking fucking forever, you can go ahead and buy construction workers or hire construction workers and then gift them or put them to work on that planet to hurry up the colony, essentially. Scientists will help with research. Security will help with their crime rate if there is one. We can sell resources if we have any raw resources. We can sell prisoners as slaves if we have any. Bribe items, etc., etc. All kinds of stuff we can do. I hope you guys are getting the picture here and how grand and how deep this game is. There's so much I haven't discovered. The thing that's so cool about it is what you're able to do. So let's go to here. Let's go and see if there's any hostile acts we can do. We could try and assassinate the Hive Queen. We've escalated to that, have we? Well, if you want to nuke her from orbit, I can actually... Oh, I can't read that. There's a little glitch right there. Not like the bloody Accusation COs. There's no getting to them, even the criminal underworld. Anyway, if we kill the Hive Queen here, there will be 4 solar years of turmoil before a new Hive Queen can be born. By turmoil, I mean the attitude of the Thraxian towards the other races dropping by 2 per month. That is huge for 4 years. No births of workers. Thraxians picket ships turning into raid ships, so they kind of go into chaos. Thraxians refusing to join the Federation until a new queen is established. If then, oh, and they retaliate. Did I mention? Even if they wind up really liking you in the future, they'll keep sending periodic assassins your way for sport, I guess. Wow. So this is kind of a last-ditch effort to destroy it. If we kill their queen, which is ridiculous, they just go into utter chaos. So this is a good thing to do if the Thraxians have taken over a good chunk of the solar system. The Andors will hate us because we're scary murderers, but they will hate us by 200 because we kill their leader. The Burlus will like us because they're military and they're like, wow, that's cool. Everybody else will not like us all that much. The Peletians will hate us, but the Peletians will lose influence because we're a murderer, but they'll also gain 5 because they're intimidated by extreme violence. Wow, we could do that. We could also just attack local armadas, which will just kind of gain us credit, which we need in the future, and kind of hinder their progress with this. So let's go ahead and... Oh, we can't actually do it right now. They have no armadas right now, so that's fine. So, again, I hope you guys are kind of understanding the scope of this game. There's so many things you can do by trading technology. Stealing technology is another thing you can do. You can go to races and just pick technology from them by fighting into their solar system and stealing it from them, and then you can go trade that to other races to give them the leg up. I mean, I know I haven't shown you much of the combat, but the combat's pretty simple, and I think you can understand how it works. And I don't know if you can tell, but I actually really like this game. Again, it's such a bizarre thing with Arcen Games. They are not afraid to fuck with formulas, and even if it's at the expense of the game being good or not, they are not afraid to experiment and see what is capable within a particular genre. You could look at this game and say, well, Mathas, it's really just like Democracy Theory. You're messing with a bunch of numbers and watching the outcome. I say, yes, that's true, but there's no real... I mean, there's a fail state, but you don't get voted out of office. It's just, you continue on, especially even if one race ends up dominating the solar system, as long as there's another race with you, you can potentially turn things around. It's really interesting, and to be honest with you, I hope this game does really well, because there's such potential to maybe see them do a sequel or something, or take this on a much grander scale and play with this idea of this galactic simulator. I really like it. I think it's really fun, and I think Arcen Games has probably the best game on their hands they've ever created, including AI War, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I think The Last Federation is something that I think people should pay attention to. This is something that is incredibly cool in both concept and execution. If I had some complaints, I think it'd be kind of simple stuff. Graphically, the game is simple as hell. I understand the need for graphic representation for combat in the solar system. A lot of their games are like this, unfortunately. Their art is never phenomenal, at least I'm not a huge fan of it. It's very clip art-y in a lot of ways, but it works. It gets the point across. I think a lot of the menus are kind of obscure. I would really like the ability to customize the information being given to me at any time. Say, for instance, I would like to see a little graph in the top left-hand corner of the races that have the most economic power. The only way to do that is to click and click and click and just look around and find the graphs that you need in order to get to them. So you need to get to like planetary overlays and all that. Well, we want that actually. Population graphs or whatever. Like this, for instance, if I wanted a population graph, I'd love the ability to customize my overlay to see information at my whim. I would love to be able to just customize my user interface, because in a game like this, it's all about watching the numbers as the galaxy or the solar system plays out. So to be able to have immediate information at the top of my screen, I'm snapping as though you guys can see me pointing at the screen and stuff. Immediate information overlay at the top of my screen to see who's doing what and what's doing who and who's more powerful and who's the weakest. That way I can make decisions on the fly would be freaking useful as hell. That would be so cool. Other than that, I mean, the text works. It's definitely a little sloppy looking. Just a little sloppy looking. It almost looks like the UI, like this works down here, but this, I don't know, something about this looks sloppy. I don't know how I would fix it. I mean, it gets you the information across as long as you understand what you're looking at. Again, play the tutorial. But it's definitely a little bit weird looking. I don't quite know why. It just rubs me the wrong way. A little amateurish looking almost. Again, I think a lot of my complaints just kind of stem to, I'm not a fan of the art. The UI could use a little bit more tweaking and working, and I would like a lot more customization, especially for a game this detailed. I would love to have just information at the ready at all times. The music is wonderful. I actually was playing the music in my head when I was laying down in bed last night, believe it or not. It was really kind of stuck with me, and I like it a whole bunch. The combat noises with the guns and stuff, a little bit too basic. They're very poppy and basic, but again, that's not the crux of this game. The combat's kind of more of a means to an end to get you to be able to complete missions. Actually, I would really like missions to play out differently now that I'm thinking about it. Every mission, whether it's sneak something in or do this or do that, is basically a combat turn-based mission. I don't know how. I would like to see maybe something a little bit different than combat. I mean, the ships are going to be firing at you. It's like you're supposed to be sneaking in information, quote unquote, but the ships out there are shooting at you, and you're trying to shoot down ships and sneak things in. And the ships that survive, especially during the sneaking missions, how are they not just telling everybody what the hell happened? Again, the missions, I would like to see maybe a little bit more variety in them. But again, minor complaint in an otherwise very excellent game. The Last Federation on Steam now. I feel like I could blab about this for a long time, and I feel like I barely scratched the surface to what this game is capable of. Check it out on Steam. It is awesome. I really, really like it, and I highly suggest you strategy nuts to go check it out. I'll have a link in the description below. If you enjoyed this, make sure you come around every single day for more videos just like this, and if you really enjoyed it, consider leaving a like. It helps me out a great deal. And as always, I'll see all of you guys next time. Judge Mathas gives it a thumbs up.